friends, when New Orleans Square opened up in July of '66, did you know that it only opened up with one original attraction? The only original attraction, it's set right here. And this attraction would predate Pirates of the Caribbean by practically a year. Brickey here, breaking down what there was in New Orleans Square before the Pirates and the Ghost all showed up, looking at New Orleans Square, lost original attraction. And with most of New Orleans Square being under construction, what a perfect time to dive into the past to give us a little New Orleans taste while we're waiting for it to come back to normal. So when New Orleans Square opened up, it only had one attraction on opening day, even though the opening day map will clearly show you that there's going to be 4 attractions. But let's break that down real quick. The first attraction that they listed was the New Orleans Square train station for the Disneyland and Santa Fe Railroad. However, the railroad had already been here since opening day on 1955, so the station was an attraction. That's right, back at the opening of New Orleans Square, just having the railroad station pop up was listed as an attraction. I don't think fans would let that slide today, but it just shows what a different moment it was, what a different land it was when New Orleans Square came on the scene here at Disneyland. People today complain about everything that's closed, but there's more open right now in New Orleans Square than there was on its opening day. And of course, no one likes when their favorites are closed during their visit, but to give a little context that when you have a living, breathing thing like Disneyland, it's just going to happen to all of us at some point. And then they listed the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates would open up in '67, Mansion would open up in '69. So that only left one opening day attraction, which I find hilarious by today's audience's expectations. What? You just opened up a land and it doesn't have a ride in it? Oh, simpler times. And I think New Orleans Square is a great example of what it is on opening day doesn't mean that that's what's going to always stay. New Orleans Square opened up as a canvas for great Disney stories to be told from, and that has held true for its nearly 50 years of existence. Today, everybody wants everything as quickly and as fast and as perfect as possible, but Disneyland is a work in progress. And I don't know that any land embraces that more than New Orleans Square and its slow start, but its epic transition to greatness. Hey friends, I interrupt today's video to say thank you for showing up, and please subscribe to Hey Brickey and help me make my way to 50K. Now back to today's show. The only original attraction, the Pirates Arcade Museum, it's set right here. But not really a museum, a vintage style arcade where you could play pirate themed games for 10 cents a round. They were all vintage style shooting games, all themed around different pirate narratives to, tie into what was coming soon, Pirates of the Caribbean. So for all the folks that complain that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened with nothing to do, when New Orleans Square opened up, it had an arcade, but it was more about the land, more about the experience. And now look at it. Years and years later, it's one of the most beloved lands in all of Disneyland. I think that gives a little bit of hope to where Star Wars Galaxy's Edge could hopefully one day grow to. The arcade adjusted a couple of different ways once Pirates of the Caribbean opened. There was a new entry point put off of the exit. This might be one of the first exit through the gift shops that ever existed at Disneyland, allowing people to come in directly from the exit or pop in when they're strolling down Royal Street, the street that I'm standing on. And if you notice, this door that's directly behind me, I believe was that original entrance, but now due to ADA compliance, it can no longer be a part of the entry and exit, which is probably when this doorway right here got introduced, still allowing an exit to the gift shop, but not being as complicated as the one further up the path. So I know to us today, an arcade doesn't exactly sound like an attraction. But in 1966, when folks could come in here and play these custom games, it truly was an attraction. Not the same as Pirates or Haunted Mansion, but those wouldn't come for years. But you have to keep in mind that video games of 1966, these were all custom-made games inside of beautiful ornated wooden cabinets with rope decor going down all of the seams to give them that pirate ship boat look. And this was a decade before really anybody had a console at home where they could play games over and over again. So it may seem a little antiquated and not like that big of a deal to you, but if you put it in the time and reference of July of '66, being able to come in here and play up to 4 different shooter games, all themed around pirates, playing music that's familiar to Disney fans, I would have to assume that it did feel indeed like an attraction. And just try to imagine being around in 1967. You just rode Pirates of the Caribbean, which is probably the first time you ever saw that many audio animatronics, that many robots in your entire life. You go on that epic journey, you come off of the exit, and then you see your ability for the small price of 10 cents to play shooting games, arcade games, interactive games, where you can have your own pirate's adventure like the one you just saw. If you put yourself in that mindset, this truly was an attraction for a different time and a different audience, which is why we constantly see the editing of Disneyland, because audiences change, their expectations change, therefore Disneyland has to change. And to all my gamers out there that are curious, what were these games? Here's a quick breakdown of all 4. Freebooter Shooter. Take pot shots at drunken pirates teetering on top of kegs, just like we see in the scenes of the actual attraction. Captain Black. Aim carefully when you play this very dark, spooky, and challenging machine. And of course, Captain Hook. How could they not pay tribute to the most popular pirate they had at the time? This game played music from the beloved Peter Pan, giving more of a Disney experience. And Pirate Shoot. The artwork showed a one-eyed pirate that said, "Test your eye, matey," and from a guy with vision problems. Well played, Mr. One-Eyed Pirate. I'll be you someday. But as we all know, the home video game console came to nearly every home in America, therefore ruining the arcade business model. And in the 80s, it quietly went away and became Pieces of 8, a store where you could buy pirate-themed merchandise. And then later on, this store would get a huge influx when this became the hub for selling a ton of Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise once they finally added a proper IP to Disney's original attraction. And to date, this is really the only time I can think of that reverse engineering an attraction and giving it a cinematic release has truly been successful. They've tried with Haunted Mansion, they tried with Jungle Cruise, but still Pirates of the Caribbean is the golden goose example of what it means to reverse engineer a ride here at Disneyland and give it a cinematic release so the ride has a little bit more context to today's youth that only understand the world through intellectual properties. I know old folks say they don't tell any original stories, but show anything to any kid and they'll be like, but what show is it from? What movie is that from? Children only learn the world through marketing, and Disney knew they needed to put some marketing into its antiquated old school attractions. Not saying that it's right, just breaking down the business model. Hello friends, I interrupt today's episode about pirates to be a little bit of a pirate myself and to grab some of your sweet booty. If you want to support Hey Brickey, head over to the link below and purchase our 40K item, the Walt 1901 hoodie, only available in the 40s. And we're 5% through this journey. At 50K, it goes away. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Back to today's pirate adventure. But luckily, there still is one piece of the Pirates Arcade Museum that exists, and it's Fortune Red, sitting here, still telling fortunes, still holding it down in New Orleans Square for the affordable price of 25 cents. Fortune Red can tell you your fortune. And I love that pieces like this exist from Disneyland's history. Sure, it's just tucked in a little breezeway on your way over to the Royal Court, but people walk through here having no idea that Red was here before the Haunted Mansion, before the other pirate showed up. Red is the OG New Orleans Square pirate. And you know, one red beard to another with pirate eyes, this has got to be my homie, right? This is my Disneyland avatar. The courtyard that's on the other side of Red is known as the Royal Court. This got a light set dressing after fans were disappointed that the Court of Angels went away for the reinvention of Club 33, where now there is a restaurant on one side of New Orleans Square and a members only lounge on the other side. To do that transition, they needed to have a grand stairway to get Club 33 members and their guests to each of the two offerings. The courtyard of the Angels got annexed into Club 33. So this little space here, The Royal Court became a small, tranquil public space inside of Disneyland. You'll often see this as a seasonal photo spot where they'll have Jack Skellington out here along with his little dog Zero, and you can get those Halloween pics in this transformational spot between Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise and Haunted Mansion merchandise. But with the Haunted Mansion soon getting its own exit through the gift shop themed around Madame Leota, what will the future hold for this location? Will it just continue to be more Haunted Mansion merchandise and eventually Nightmare Before Christmas? Or could this transform into something altogether differently, once again adding transition to the shops inside of New Orleans Square, which truly has been a living, breathing marketplace since it opened up nearly 50 years ago. And then up above me is where 21 Royal is, where you and I believe 10 or 12 of your closest friends can get together for a meal that's affordably priced at $18,000. The irony that a location where once you could play 4 different games for $0.10 per play now has a restaurant that sits above it that is literally half of what people make annually in Ohio is absolutely crazy. Oh, simpler times. And a bit of a hidden fun fact. If you look at the balcony of this building right here, the Pieces of 8 building, you'll notice that there's lots of birds and bird cages up on that balcony. That is to pay tribute to when Walt Disney himself went to New Orleans and bought a small mechanical bird in a cage that got the idea rolling in his head, what if we made robots that could tell stories back home at Disneyland? So it's given a subtle shout out to the birth of audio animatronics, one of the things that Walt took from his inspiration of New Orleans Square, and there's just a little bit of an Easter egg right there for people that walk by and know that story. I love it. And if you wonder what's behind these old school wooden doors in this breezeway over to the Royal Court, it's not a cellar. These wooden doors are a fake facade. When they open up about 2 feet on the other side is an elevator that takes you up to the Club 33 21 Royal level of this building. One of the other fun coin-operated gems that you could find inside of the Pirates Arcade Museum was a postcard machine, because you know, postcards used to be a big thing in America's history. Postcards were the original social media, the original way to create that FOMO. I'm at Disneyland and you're not. But what made this postcard machine special is that it had concept art from Pirates of the Caribbean created by Mark Davis, who is the illustrator mastermind of all the characters and little jokes that we see in one of Disney's best themed attractions they've ever created. To me, there's just something so nostalgic and sweet about getting excited about buying postcards, mailing them back home from your hotel, letting grandma know you and the kids are having a good time. So yes, today a arcade would hardly be an attraction. But if you put yourself in the mindset of a much simpler time and having never really played video games or seen robots tell a story in your life, it must have been mind-blowing to come off of that exit and to be able to finally live your own pirate adventure after you were all after being all hopped up on pirate street justice. Finally, you could do it yourself. I love the constant influx of the Disney parks. The Sim City nature of this place is what drew me to it as a creative. The fact that I could realize that it's always changing, always adapting. It is my favorite part of following this on the channel. I appreciate you showing up. If you want to see what the future of the Disneyland expansion has to do with Critter Country, watch this video right here. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you.